Okay, that was very short notice, so I assume it'll be a pretty empty chat, especially since it's Sunday night at, well, my 11:15, I think. What is it? Yeah. And so, I don't know, most people in the States might be in church at this point. So I did a little mini poll, which I didn't really give a lot of time for people to vote on it. So I'm just going with like the first few votes of what people said, which was whether, what you wanted the next live stream to be about. And I had a few options, which were the guns you'd take if limited to 100 kilograms and you're in the Cenozoic era of dinosaurs, which is based on, what was the guy's name? Frank something, like his books on the Cenozoic era, which, and then the role-playing game we made called Cadillacs and Dinosaurs, which I was sure I had here, but I can't seem to find. And it's personally my favorite, but nobody seems to enjoy that as much as me. So the rest of the votes were sort of pretty much an even split between surviving World War III if you're in Europe, which actually came first spot, how do you actually go fully off grid, and surviving World War III if you're in the USA. So those three sort of came top, and not far behind was finding a good wife in 2023. Apparently no one else has any other topics they care about, or not of the 21 people that voted so far. So it looks like surviving World War III kind of comes top of the list. You black-pilled fools. Oh, I haven't put on the best volume. Let's see. Hopefully, let me turn this on. Hopefully my voice is still coming through, but let me. I haven't the whole audio thing. Seems to be 3 of you watching, so please let me know if the audio is okay. And yeah, feel free to just drop me a little comment in the chat to let me know you can hear me. But as I was saying, surviving World War III in Europe actually came first, so maybe there's quite a few Europeans listening to me. Cheers. I'm drinking a Verdicchio, I believe. Verdicchio Frizzante, which is a sparkling, mild white wine. And if you're wondering about the glass, these are made from, this particular one I think was from a gifted bottle of green Curacao, I want to say, or rum, something like that, from Curacao. But these ones are the ones I've been making a lot of. So I've got all these Corona beer bottles that I'm making glasses out of, in honor of the recent events. So that's right. There's a lot of little Corona glasses that are being built. Well, hopefully the silence on the chat means that the audio is fine and not that the audio is not there, but do let me know if you get a chance. And anyway, as I said, so according to my little mini poll, which has not been voted on very much yet because I just put it up not too long ago, most of you would like to know how to survive World War III in Europe, how to actually go fully off grid, and how to survive World War III if you're in the USA. And closely as a second to all of that is finding a good wife in 2023. So I think I'm going to start with the finding a good wife part, because I just had a conversation with my wife a day or 2 ago about it. And we were talking, I was thinking like, well, the reason that this came up is because it's the third person in their 20s, early to mid 20s, that have got married, at least partly as a result of reading my stuff and becoming sedevacantists, finding a wife that is like, you know, also like them, got baptized, became sedevacantist Catholics, proper Catholics, in other words, and they got married. So that's 3 in the last year, yeah, that got married and all got baptized, confirmed, and you know, attend proper Catholic church regularly. And so it's not as impossible or difficult as people think, but there are a certain number of things you need to keep in mind. And one of these is that you have to sort of realize that the current zeitgeist of the planet is just not really conducive to good civilization, really, anywhere in the West. Pardon me. And you know, the level of degeneracy, like ubiquitous pornography and so on, it all helps to you know, just generally reduce the kind of ability that one might have to connect with another human being on the correct levels for marriage, children, etc. Oh, I see either rural internet or the topic is not enjoyed by many, as they seem to be dropping off, but regardless. So if you actually want to find a good wife, I was discussing this with my own wife a couple of days ago, you know, I think the average young guy in his early 20s or whatever, mid 20s, is probably thinking, oh my God, the world's gone to hell, you can't find a good person to get married to, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, there's a lot of medical information coming out that affects all sorts of people. There's all sorts of people dying suddenly, supposedly from climate change, apparently, or adult sudden death syndrome, I think it's called. And, you know, so a lot of people are depressed, upset. The COVID lockdowns got people to be, you know, pretty much isolated and so on, although those are finished now pretty much. And so, you know, I just thought, well, actually, you know, it's always a numbers game, regardless of anything else. For you to get lucky and hit the right person at the right time and just meet up, match together, be of the same sort of mentality with everything that's going on currently in the world right now is pretty difficult. But on the other hand, you could say, well, it's a lot easier because before all the, you know, 2020 stuff to 2023, where we are now, before all that stuff happened, you really didn't have any idea of a person's politics, health situation, belief in this or that ideology. Now, everything is so polarized that I think it's a lot easier to see what a person thinks about any number of topics, from health-related issues, which, well, apparently I can't discuss in any level of detail. So given that I'm not a doctor, you know, I'll leave it to you to figure out what's real and what's not real and what's important and what's not important to you about certain diseases or things related to them. So while before, you know, maybe you had to scroll through Tinder and just went on sheer looks or some line that they had in their mini biography, now it's pretty easy to know what people think about the war in Ukraine, the war going on in Israel and Gaza, their belief systems on various health issues, their belief systems on pretty much anything, is essentially front and center for everybody. So immediately, depending on your own ideas about these things, you can very quickly scan through a bunch of profiles and sort of go, oh, you've got that flag up, I don't like that. Or you don't have that flag up, I don't like that. Or you believe this, oh, I don't like that. Oh, you really bought into this particular thing and I'm not into it. So this polarization actually gets rid of a bunch of people that previously you might have wasted time meeting up with, having coffee with, having a conversation, and maybe even starting a relationship, because these things didn't really come up until later. I mean, I certainly had occasion in the past to meet up with a woman that I thought was, attractive and somewhat interesting, only to find out often, unfortunately, after we had already been intimate, that they had certain views that really had nothing to do with me. And on a couple of occasions, sometimes got intimate before I fully remember their name. So that kind of level of, degeneracy, in a sense, is you can avoid that now. And I recently reread a very old blog post on one of my old blogs about how to find the ideal woman, and the things I'd written then was like, basically, well, have sex first and then you can figure out the rest later, because given I was coming from a completely secular background, it was like, well, intimacy is a good way to get, if you have sex with somebody, it's a good way to get intimate with somebody. You're gonna get to know them a bit. You're gonna get to, like, not just know them physically, but also know them at some emotional level, at some level that means something. And while that is somewhat true, in retrospect, it's obviously not the best way to go about things. But the best way to go about things is very difficult for the average person today, especially somebody in their 20s, which, keep in mind, somebody in their 20s today has always had the internet from when they were born. It was already there. Has always been bombarded by TV, media, radio, newspapers, books, school, and everything and all sorts of things that are absolute lies and that don't hold water at all, and which, if the planet does revert to an economic disaster / World War III, you're going to be rudely awakened to the realities of what human beings are really like when, the shit hits the fan. And the real way to get to know somebody, to meet somebody, is to spend time with them and, get to know their parents, get to know their friends, get to know their home life. Yes, it is difficult in today's sort of hookup culture to, like, hang out with a member of the opposite sex when maybe you're not having sex, or if one of you says, no, I'm gonna save myself for marriage, very often the other side would be like, what? That's antiquated nonsense. What are you, Amish? And they would move on. I've counseled people that are now married that, we're basically breaking up with their significant other because they were unwilling to go into the mortal sin of having sex before marriage. And I basically gave them what is essentially bad Catholic advice and said, look, just, have the sex, but get them to the altar and get them to get baptized and whatever, which is what they did, and it worked, and it went well for them. Is that the only way? No, I'm not saying it is. There are people that have done it the proper way, which is, they asked for permission, they met them, they got married. However, such women or men that have been raised in such a way to, like, save themselves for marriage are a rarity in today's modern world. They are not the standard, they are the exception. And yes, of course, you should look for such people. And yes, of course, sedevacantist Catholic churches are the place to go. Make no mistake. Um, one of the guys that was married to another person, that's where they met. They met in a sedevacantist church. One of the other people basically had to go to a different country to get baptized with their wife because there wasn't a sedevacantist church in their country. And they're now trying to like create a little mini community and import a priest to be there. Another person, the guy was sedevacantist, and the girl was, being raised Protestant, but in a very conservative and correct household. And so that worked out for them, and she got baptized. They're both Catholics now and doing really well. So it is absolutely possible. But if you want to find a woman or a man that's already predisposed to that sort of way of thinking, and by that way of thinking I mean marriage is something that lasts until one or both of you die. It's for life. It's not optional. There is no divorce. And it lasts until you're dead. And it is primarily in order to have children. In order to have that mindset, you need to get rid of some of the lies that you've been told. So, one, the physical aspect. To some extent, the physical aspect is an undeniable thing. And it's, you need to understand this, you need to know this. The physical aspect is also composed from your various childhood traumas, your various things that happened to you in childhood, what you thought was attractive, the kind of parents you had, the kind of environment you had, everything affects that. And as the Romans used to say, de gustibus non disputandi. There's no arguing for taste. What might be a 10 for me might be a 6 for you, and vice versa. Though generally speaking, what's a 10 for me seems to be a 10 for everybody else too. But the fact is, the physical look of a woman is more important to a man than it is to a woman, generally speaking. Hello all, by the way, in the chat. That's not to say that women are don't care about the appearance of the man. They do, but the old Russian saying pretty much stands. And the old Russian saying is that a man only needs to be a little bit prettier than a monkey. Because women are attracted to other things, not necessarily just the physical looks, while men are more generally attracted to the physical looks. And there are biological reasons for this, because ultimately a woman is looking for safety, security, knowing that she will be looked after, that her children will be looked after, and so on. But there is, a component of genetic strength, pheromones that will tell you, okay, this guy's going to make strong, good kids. While a man is more attracted to the looks because his children, if they're prettier and more handsome, they have an advantage in life. The strength, the character, and so on, in terms of, their sort of willpower and so on, generally tends to come from the male side. So that's why it works that way. And there is a certain level of truth in the fact that we can't necessarily control what we are attracted to or who we're attracted to. And certainly there is a level of mystic click, at least for me, that needs to be present. If I don't have that mystic click, I could, again, I'm married now, so things are different, but I'm looking at my past, and it's like, I didn't have to have a mystic click in order to have really great sex with somebody. I could. In fact, I even had sex with a few people that I didn't particularly find physically attractive, but I was experimenting, and I just thought, well, so what? They're not the greatest looking girl or whatever, but, fine, let me see what happens with them. And I was usually pleasantly surprised because, they were quite enthusiastic and so on. And, you know, they generally were decent people anyway, in terms of character and so on. But the women with which I had an actual click that I thought, oh yeah, this could be the one, there's very few. You know, of the dozens that I slept with, a handful of them could fit that criteria. And admittedly, all those women are considered, you know, generally good looking, beautiful by the average man, certainly all above average. But again, that is a real thing for me. You know, that the physical attractiveness is a thing for me. It's part of the mystic click, but it's not the all be all and end all. And so you got to know there are certain limiting parameters that you need to know about. But then after that, it's really more of a character thing. It's really more of a values thing than anything else. So there's a minimum level of attractiveness that you've got to have for yourself, probably. But there are aspects of a person's character that definitely can overshadow the looks department. And that is as it should be. So the first thing you need to do is realize that the physical looks are not actually all that important. And over time, those looks degrade, you know. Funnily enough, while looks degrade mostly for a woman's perspective is different than a man's. You know, a man generally is aware that maybe his wife's looks are, you know, fading a bit or whatever. But it doesn't seem to affect men anywhere near as much, if it's a real relationship, as it might do women about themselves. Women might not be that badly affected by their husband degrading, although I suspect they are. But they're definitely affected by their own looks degrading. While as a man, if you're in love with a woman, you care about her, it doesn't matter. You know, she can become a 90-year-old, toothless, rickety, wrinkled prune. And you'd be like, yeah, man, but you know, what matters to you by that point is like, you know, the 50, 60, 70 years you spent with her and all the shit you've been through together. That's what matters. And that's what makes a difference. And if you're in your 20s, you need to understand that so-called idealized love, where, you know, you actually end up together and you stay together until the end of time, men tend to actually believe in that more than women do. Women say they believe in it, but they don't really act like it. Men say they don't really believe in it, but actually they feel it. And again, it's a generalization, but it's generally true. You know, the males are actually the romantic sex of the species, not women. Women say they're romantic, but really they're practical. Men say they're practical, but really they're romantic. So it's, I think, as the famous comedian Billy Connolly says, I think he said this joke, he said, apparently a woman has to feel loved before they have sex with somebody, while a man has to have sex before they can feel love towards someone. So basically, your relationship always begins with a lie, at least from one side. And, you know, there's some truth to that, I suppose. But so that the main point you need to realize is that your long-term prospects are what's important. If you just focus on that, if you just focus on like, okay, what do I want to be like when I'm in my 40s, 60s, 80s with my partner, my wife or my husband? What do I want that to look like? And you focus on that, and you focus on finding a person that fits your idea of those things. That's step number one. Step number two, remember, it's much easier to filter now for the kind of people that have at least broad spectrum ideas that are in line with your own, because everything is so polarized, everything is so easy to, like, you know, if you, I used to do this anyway, like if I took a girl out for coffee or dinner or whatever, and it was the first time I met her, I would drop little sort of hints about, so what do you think about feminism? You know, just come right out with a subtle thing like that, like, so what do you think about feminism? That would be one of the questions I'd ask. And depending on the response, that could be the end of the coffee date right there, or okay, we can take it a bit further. As it happens, I did. It's really funny, my contention is that feminists tend to be relatively ugly, acidic, unhappy women, because I've never met, a supermodel looking girl that's a hardcore feminist, because they know their power, they've used it, they use it, and they're all for being feminine and women. Hello, Woolly Ram, and Woolly's just made a comment there that's relevant. Yeah. But I have also met women that pretended to be feminists until they end up naked in your bed. And, then it's like the feminism tends to go out the window pretty quick. So don't get too hung up on, obviously if somebody has got screaming ideologies that are completely opposite to your own, well then, forget about it. It's too much work. But don't be too put off if a woman has some ideas that are with the general zeitgeist of the planet, which you disagree with, because, women's ideas about the world and so on are very much influenced by the crowd, by what the media tells them, what the newspaper tells them, what their friends tell them. And unfortunately, that's also the case with a lot of men, but generally speaking, a man that's actually a man looks at things, figures things out, and makes up his own mind, regardless of what the newspapers tell you, or regardless of what the TV tells you. It's easy to say that, but of course, if you actually watch the news and buy and read newspapers, you're influenced. I haven't picked up a newspaper, read a newspaper, or watched a news program on TV, or the internet for that matter, since 2008. So a good, 15 years or so now. And it was an experiment that I did for about a month. I used to get the paper going on to work, and I thought, this is just filled with negative shit. Like, why am I reading this? It's not doing me any good. So I thought, well, let me just not read it at all for a month. And I still know everything that's going on because I read various blogs that, keep up with what's going on the planet. I mean, I know there's the war situation in Gaza. I know the war situation in Ukraine. In fact, I would say that not reading the mainstream media makes me more informed, because I remember having a very big argument with a guy at work. It was a work dinner actually, in 2014, I think it was, 2014, when the whole Maidan was happening in the Ukraine. And I was like, well, that's obviously funded by the USA. I mean, that literally said it, Victoria Nuland said, we'll spend $5 billion on NGOs to change the government there. She literally said that on video. She had a phone call with the ambassador to the Ukraine, the American ambassador, saying, well, I don't give a fuck what Europe says. Poroshenko's going to be the next president. And that's what it was. So it wasn't like a conspiracy theory, but this guy that I went to dinner with, and he was one of the few guys I had some respect for in terms of his work at work, because, he was a quantity surveyor that actually did his job pretty well. And he was one of the few guys that actually was doing a good job about it. So I kind of respected his work, and I was just so surprised by his utter ignorance on the matter, and thinking that, oh no, the Russians are the evil guys that started all this. And I'm like, the Russians have got fuck all to do with it. It's all funded by America. And when I told him this stuff, I said, have you not seen the videos by, Victoria Nuland? He was totally full on bought into the whole, mainstream media stuff that was being served by CNN and whatever. I don't know what he watched, because again, like I said, I didn't, but it was shocking to me. And I realized that, a lot of people, even supposedly intelligent people, are completely brainwashed by what they see on the mainstream media, which is, for the most part, lies. I mean, you're literally more likely to be correct if you take whatever the mainstream media says and assume that it's 180 degrees a lie. In other words, that the opposite is the truth. You're probably going to score a better, value for truth in your life than if you did otherwise. So keeping that in mind, you have to reject all those modernistic nonsense. And if you try and understand, well, what actually created civilization? Well, what created civilization, like it or not, it doesn't matter if you're proud, is Catholicism. It doesn't matter if you agree with me or not. It's not about whether you agree with it, whether your opinion is right or mine. It's not an opinion. It's a historical, demonstrable, obvious fact. If you just actually look, at history, there was nothing else other than Catholicism for over 1,000 years. And then when there was that initial split, which was mostly a political thing and mostly done by the Byzantine side, because they were power hungry, greedy, Byzantine is still used today as the scheming word. And that lasted another 500 years. So there was really only Catholicism or Orthodoxy, what they call Orthodoxy, inverted commas, but is really the schismatics from the East. So for 1,500 years, that was Christianity, Catholicism, essentially. And then, that crazy monk that was seemed to be founded by and related to people with very small hats was basically a hit job on the Catholic Church. And then Protestantism is now 500 years old. And what are the fruits of Protestantism? What are the fruits of Catholicism? Catholicism essentially civilized the planet, got rid of things like slavery, got rid of things like women being chattel and children. Civilized humanity, really. Invented the scientific method. The scientific method came about as a result of Catholic monks. Spread all sorts of things. It's all the lies that the Protestant go on about, that Catholicism is based on pagan stuff and that the Catholics forbid the reading of the Bible. It's all absolute nonsense, which is debunked even by non-Catholics like Rodney Stark, who wrote Bearing False Witness, which is, Rodney Stark is a Protestant. He's a Baptist. And yet he's an honest historian, and he's basically written a whole book about how the Protestants lie about Catholicism. So it's quite an interesting book, quite an interesting guy, actually. He's just an honest man who's a historian. And, if you read, again, who's the other guy? I forgot his name now. But there's a book about the history of the popes, all the popes in history. It's funny because he's a Protestant too, and he invalidates his own idea of Protestantism by page 9. And I think it's called The Popes. It'll come to me who the guy is. Hello, Romans 12:2. And it's just hilarious because he's got basically a page or so on each pope. And, it's very clear that you had popes for over 1,000 years, and everybody understood the Pope was the head of the Catholic Church, and no one else really was his equal. It's quite funny, really, for people that say, "Oh no, Catholicism is all." But the brainwashing is powerful. Brainwashing and indoctrination is a very, very powerful thing, and we've all been subjected to it in various degrees, to various extents. I was subjected to it for a long time about Catholicism. I myself, never was raised Catholic or anything like that. I wasn't raised in any religious belief system. And, I was 42 before something happened to me that a lot of other things happened to me before that would have made any normal man religious. Absolutely. I had a lot of weird experiences that can only be explained by there being a continuation of life after death and so on. And yet I stuck to my Zen agnosticism with clung to it quite strongly until something happened to me, a road to Damascus moment that made me realize, oh, God is actually real and I know nothing. I'm a stupid idiot who for 42 years has been wrong about pretty much everything that's really important. And then I started to realize, okay, well, the real God is love, and that means, and I'd already read everything pretty much to do with Hinduism, Islam, and many different religions. The thing that had made more sense to me at that point in time was essentially a Zen agnosticism, which is just very practical stuff with a little bit of Shintoism built in, which is like the belief that your dead ancestors look over you, which, by the way, is valid thought in Catholicism as well. So it wasn't that far removed from it, but I actually despised the Catholic Church because the only Catholic Church I knew was the Novus Ordo Catholic Church, which is fake. But now, if you go back in time and you look at what civilization did Catholicism create, it created an amazing, civilization that was oriented on the individual, on the little human guy, and on the family. The family, the individual was important, and the family was the most important thing in civilization, in society. And the family was composed of a man, a woman, his husband and wife, and their children. And the purpose of marriage was to produce children and raise them correctly in a Catholic environment. And in a Catholic city, you might have had a city-state that might have been walled off against, bandits and so on. But as Catholics in a Catholic village, there really is essentially no crime. And even now, after 500 years of infiltration and constant barrage of Protestantism and satanic Freemasonry and so on, and the fake church, 70 years of fake Catholicism by the Bergoglian, Novus Ordo Satanists, in little villages in Italy that are mostly still nominally Catholic, in inverted commas, there is hardly any crime. One guy in this little village was arrested for burglary, and he was a 20-something-year-old Brazilian. He wasn't a local, and he was an idiot, and he got caught right away, and that's that. More upsetting is the quasi-Catholics, whoever they are, that robbed the property of my dead neighbor next door, which really pisses me off because, man, the guy's dead, and they came in there to broke into his warehouse there and stole some of his tools and stole his pump from his well. It's like, what kind of scumbag does that? So anyway, I see there's a few of you in here that are saying hello, Sam, Woolly Ram. And guys, if you've got questions and stuff, just throw them in. And it's really nice to see Romans 12 too. I'm glad he's here. He's got a little weird emoji of a half sheep head. I don't know what that is. Woolly Ram says, mundane example, now that nerd culture is profitable and approved of by the megacorps, women are not, or at least pretend to be interested in RPG gaming. That's interesting, that women pretend to be interested in RPG games. The thing is, I played role-playing games, pen and paper role-playing games, which, by the way, I had a blog post not too long ago about the importance of hypotheticals, of gaming things out. Oh, it's a salute emoji. Oh, hello, Romans. Thank you. I thought it was a half sheep. It looked like an ear instead of like a little... I thought it was a sheep ear with a half face. Instead, it's a little dude saluting. So, the role-playing game that I wrote up, that surviving the current zombie apocalypse, it really is something that you guys should pay attention to. And I promise you, it's not about money for me. Like, when you buy that book, which is full color, by the way, that role-playing game rules books is full colors, $25 or $28, something like that. And the little first module for it is like $10. That's not in full color. It's in black and white. It's got artwork in it. But anyway, even if you buy both of those, which is like setting you back, what, $38, $35, under $40 anyway, for a whole role-playing game, which you can adapt. And, it's really easy to adapt. It is, I don't know, I think I make like $3 on it or something like that. So I'm not going to become rich by you guys buying the role-playing game. But the reason I wrote that was to give you an idea of how to role-play different scenarios that can and are becoming self-evident pretty much across the planet. And by playing a game, that's the best way you learn. And this is true for little children as it is for adults. If you role play with paint guns every weekend. Okay, you're not gonna be like, you know, totally clued up on long range warfare, you know, sniper rifle stuff or stuff like that. But in a close quarter combat, in a forest environment or something, you will be better off. And that stuff still happens. You know, you've got videos of Russian guys getting like Ukrainian guys out of like, you know, underground little shelters and so on. Even hand-to-hand combat still happens. Trenches still exist. You never know when shit might go down. So, but to finish off on the finding a good wife, yes, going to the right places, but first of all, realize that the zeitgeist of today's world is nonsense. The world that was enlightened, that was truly awake, that really knew what they were doing, was Catholicism circa the year 500 to the year 1500. And it carried on, you know, up to the 1800s. It was Catholicism was really the way to go. So look for that. Look for long-term prospects, and it's, you know, select between the women or men that already sort of to some extent fit in those parameters. Is there an exception? You bet your ass. I'm a living proof of it. You know, me and my wife are living proofs of it. We are about as far removed from being considered a typically Catholic couple that you can possibly imagine. I mean, what she comes from and what I come from are just nothing to do with Catholicism. And yes, you know, here we are. So keep those two things in mind: long-term prospects, having children, especially if you know, if you know people that are, well, I would say, you know, having children is especially more important if you are of a sort of Western/European ethnicity, because we are a minority in the world. We have created the most civilized parts of the planet thanks to Catholicism. And, you know, I know Americans are going to be going, oh, but we're Protestants, we're the best guys in the world. No, you're not the best guys in the world. You didn't go to the moon. The Germans did for you. Everything that you've gotten figured out came from Europe to begin with. You know, so just keep in mind those things. And, you know, so having lots of children, again, if I think of myself in my 20s and my 30s, I was like, I'm never getting married and I'm never having kids. That used to be what I used to think, because of the zeitgeist around me, of the shit that people told me, of the bullshit that I saw going around, of the lies of the people. And I just thought, man, this world is shit. I didn't have any belief in God. I just looked around at what was going on. And I thought, well, this is humanity, and humanity sucks. And why would I want to bring a child or even multiple children into this world of shit filled with such retards and bad people and just evil shit going on all the time? No rhyme or reason to it. And you know, if I'd had, I wonder what I would have been. Oh, man, I would have been such a powerful zealot if I'd been a convinced Catholic in my 20s, or even in my 30s. I'd probably have 15 children by now. Although, you know, probably a few of my wives would have died from childbirth or just not being able to keep up in general. But, you know, for example, my wife now, she's awesome, because, you know, we've got 5 kids. You know, the situation economically is not great at the moment. And but you know, we just love our children. We love the new one, the little baby one. She's awesome. She's so funny, and she's, I don't know, she must be an old soul, because she's not like your typical baby. She doesn't, you know, laugh at the usual little stupid things you do. She's kind of laughs if you tickle her a bit in the right way, but she's very sober little baby. And she gives the best kisses, like just randomly when she wants to. You know, she'll just climb up on you and just give you like a full open mouth, like smooch on the mouth. But, you know, I could have, if I knew when I was in my 20s or 30s what I know now, yeah, I would easily have like 15 kids now. So Roman says to go, and okay, he was having dinner. He's just saying he's having dinner with his son. And he says, with women, a virgin or low partner count is highly preferred. Yeah, look, again, I'm not saying that's incorrect. You know, there are plenty of studies that show that like a woman with a low partner count is more likely to, you know, stick around, to last through the marriage and whatever. But again, you're kind of starting from the wrong perspective. Start from the right perspective. If you're dealing with somebody who is a proper Catholic, they already have that mindset. They already have the mindset that just spreading their legs all over the place is not the thing. And even if you meet a woman that did spread her legs all over the place and then repented and truly came to the realization what she was doing was totally fucking wrong, and now she's become a sedevacantist all by herself or whatever, again, that's not somebody to be discarded. That's not somebody to be ignored. You know, both I've been with women that had like very low body count, and I've been with women that had very high body count. The only thing I can say is the ones with a high body count tend to be, you know, less likely to pair bond with you easily or deeply. It doesn't mean they can't. It just means, in my opinion, that they've refined the things that they're really looking for, which might be completely illogical and unrealistic and wrong. But if you hit those parameters in the right context, they are equally as able to pair bond with you as a man is, more or less. Because keep in mind that a man that's been with a lot of women has also become mercenary and just distracted, and it's like, oh, it's just sex with some other girl, who cares? You know, in my defense, I was never really looking for a bunch of different sex partners. Originally, I just wanted to find the right one and be with one, and then that didn't work out, and then the next one didn't work out, and then the next one didn't work out, and then I was like, ah, fuck it, okay, I'm probably not meant to like be with somebody like that. And then I went full circle. You know, I went through the world, and then I came full circle, and I thought, well, I could keep doing this indefinitely. And you know, for a time, I thought it was fun, interesting. It distracted me from, you know, the day-to-day life. Keep in mind, until I got to the UK, I also was never part of the rat race. I'd done other things. I had my own business. I wrote books. I did other stuff. And only when I got to the UK that I inserted myself into the generic rat race of having a job and going to the, you know, 9 to 5, which was usually like 7 till 6 or whatever. And that was basically a new experience for me. And in order to like survive the mental rigidity of like having to go to an office like 5 days a week regularly, which was like, man, this is just, what the fuck, what do I need to do this for? I mean, I did it at first as out of curiosity, you know, first out of necessity, and then out of curiosity, like, oh, let's see how good I can get at this. Oh, it's really easy. I can actually make these people quite a lot of money. I can get promoted. I can get better pay. I can switch companies. So I was always freelance, but in doing that, a lot of my time was spent at work, and I was like, well, I need some distraction. I need some fun. And yeah, new pretty girl. Hey, she's fun. Hey, new another pretty girl. Oh, whatever, you know. And I was just sort of going through the motions. I didn't really have anything much more to live for than that. Being, you know, I was essentially a secular Zen agnostic. And then I got bored of it, to be frank. Got to the point where I knew I could always have some pretty woman on my arm, on my bed, or whatever. And I thought, well, okay, well, what's next? Well, maybe actually having a family is another challenge, because I know I can work, I know I can make money, I know I can like have a pretty girl, I know I can go shoot whatever guns I want to shoot. I know I can live in any country I want to live in. What's left? I've traveled a lot, done a lot of women, I've done a lot of countries, I've done a lot of cultures, I've just done generally a lot of weird shit. What now? It's like, well, actually having a family, that would be interesting, because the world is shit, you know, but what if I have a child or two and, you know, just protect them and look after them and give them a good life? That would be a challenge. And that's really how, you know, I ended up having my first daughter, really. And then that whole situation blew up in my face. But I don't regret, you know, my daughter, obviously. She's great. And then after that blew up in my face, it was like, well, fuck it, I don't really care about anything again. So whatever, just go back to doing whatever, it doesn't matter. I just know I have a kid out there, which maybe I'll see one day. And then as it happens now, you know, my daughter's been living with me for the last couple of years. More than a couple of years now. And she's awesome, she's good. And then miraculously, I had, you know, as a result of that whole situation blowing up in my face, I had this revelation about God and so on, and became eventually Catholic. And then I realized all the other stuff I'd done was just like a distraction, was just because I was lost. I didn't know I was lost. I didn't think I was lost. I felt pretty found to me. I was pretty successful at whatever I tried to do. And then as a Catholic, well, as soon as you became Catholic, a whole bunch of stuff starts to like attack you in some weird way, from your friends to your family or whatever. And now a few years later, even friends and family are starting to like, oh, actually, they're starting to gravitate more towards being Catholic, or at least taking on some of the stuff that is positive about it. Because they see some results, because they see some effects, because their, you know, initial, oh, you're just an evil, I don't know, patriarchal, misogynist, zealot, or nonsense, they're generally starting to like wake the fuck up and realize that, hey, you know, 2 + 2 is 4. It's not purple, it's 4. It's the number 4, and the number 4's got corners. Oh, and it's not racist or purple, you know. So there's a progression there. And these young guys that I mentioned that all got married in the last year, they somehow understood all of this. They're all Zoomers, very well. And they're in their 20s, and I'm astonished by them. I'm amazed and very proud and very, you know, supportive of the fact that they, at such a young age, they figured out so much that, you know, I certainly hadn't at their age. I mean, I could fuck people up better probably because I was obsessed with karate, and I could probably shoot better because I was, you know, working as a bodyguard. But Snow says that 2 + purple equals xenophobe. There you go. You know, you getting it. So, again, if you want to find a good wife, look in the right places. Keep in mind that, you know, the zeitgeist of the world is 95% complete bullshit, and the other 5%, half of it is lies and wrong. And, you know, do your own, make your own road. And also wrote a blog post not too long ago called, I think I wrote, what's it called? Concentrated Advice for Men and Some Women. So that was like a couple of days ago. It was posted on the 29th of October? Yeah, it was posted on the 29th of October, I think. So just go to the blog and read that if you want to, because as long as you're a man and you choose your own path and you stick to it, it doesn't mean you won't make mistakes. You will. But the right kind of woman will gravitate towards you. And you say, oh, that's easy for you to say, you know, you're 6'2" and what a good looking handsome guy with like sexy green and red specs, which actually I really don't like these, but I broke the other ones like a moron, so I had to order another pair. You know, I'm like a 4'9" hairy goblin. Okay, fine. If you're a 4'9" hairy goblin, probably not going to end up with a supermodel. But you know, there's like 4 foot hairy goblin women out there that are just as lonely as you are. And there's nothing wrong with you figuring out that one of them is your person, you know. So that's a way to go. So keep in mind that these big concepts, you know, big ideas, generic like marriages to make children and raise them, and lots of them, Catholicism is the way to go, the old real true Catholicism, which is now only sedevacantists follow, is what civilized the world. The individual matters. You know, the religion of Catholicism is based on the human being. The religion of Protestantism is based on the system. The human being has to fall into the schedule of the grinding system, whether it's the Industrial Revolution, whether it's spreadsheets, whether it's like you got to work 9 to 5. Catholicism is based around the person. I work when I get up, then I need to eat, I'll take a siesta, then I carry on working, then I play with my kid, you know, and my family is more important than any job. That's Catholicism. And it works. And it worked. So you got to go back to those kind of ideas, and you got to find a person that fits in with those kind of ideas. Great. Now you got the big picture stuff done? Cool. Now, the small picture stuff. If you are going to go that route, and if you're going to also take my advice on surviving World War III, and you're going to go into the bush, and you're going to try and be off-grid, life's going to be hard. Do not buy into whichever fucking YouTube personality, you know, whether it's, I don't care who they are, that tells you, yeah, go off-grid, it's all easy and fun. It's not easy. It can be fun, but not necessarily. For example, I don't particularly enjoy farming. I don't enjoy planting fucking trees and food, and I don't enjoy any of that shit. I don't even enjoy plucking fruits off the trees. I don't enjoy it. I'll do it, but it's not what I consider fun. I would enjoy hunting more. That I can do. That I'm good at, and I like doing it. It's fun. So, you know, you got to know your limitations. But if you want to go off grid, it's a hard life. You got to create everything. You got to build everything. And even if you do everything right, there's still shit that you need to fix every day. Every day there's going to be stuff that you need to do. There's never a day off. There's never a day where there's like, oh, I can just take it easy. There will be days where you can take it easy, but that's after you've created everything the way it works, and there's going to be emergencies all the time. Now, there's days that those emergencies are going to be like, yeah, I can let that run for a week or two or whatever. And then there's days where like, I need to do this now because otherwise we're literally in the shit. If my sewage line breaks and my biocomposting thing doesn't work, I'm literally going to have crap coming out of the toilet. So I need to fix that. So, you know, don't think that going off grid is easy or the perfect answer. It is, I think, ultimately a very good answer for a lot of people, but it's not the only answer, and it might not be right for you. So, okay, let me just read some of the comments because there's some funny stuff. So Woolly Ram says, a plus side of a big family is that having brother sisters demystifies the other sex and makes taking care of children less of an unknown. That's absolutely true. You know, my eldest daughter, who's nearly 12 now, she is awesome with her little brothers and sisters. She loves them. She naturally wants to look after them. She's happy to play with them. She doesn't get bored with them. She's really good at looking after the baby, who's not even a year old, and the baby loves her too. It's a mutual, you know, admiration society. She loves the little creatures, and she loves her little sister, the funny one, you know, the one we call Piglet, because all our children have got little animals. They sort of, like my eldest one, you know, I called her Froggy when she was little because she was kind of like a little frog. She just like squatted on me and fell asleep on me and stuff. You know, she's older now, so she's a very pretty young girl. But then the other one is Monkey, because she's basically ADHD and climbs things and jumps, and she can't stay still for 5 minutes. And if you put food in front of her, it'll spill everywhere, despite the fact she's 8. And you know, she'll eat 10 things and bite 5 of them and leave the rest and make a mess, like a monkey. Then the little Viking dude, you know, he's a bull. He's a Taurus, and even when he I was saying to my wife, you know, but he likes T-Rex, kind of like a T-Rex. I mean, he does run around rampant and like grabs things and bite, you know, doesn't actually bite, but, you know, he does smash things and stomp things. And she goes, come on, man, he's a bull. Even when he gets pissed off, remember, he just stands and goes, and then stomps his foot. Like, yeah, that's a fair point. And then the little one, his sister, which is a bit younger than him, we just call her Piglet because since she was small, she just eats everything. She's never had a problem with eating anything. It still now doesn't. And she's like, oh, that's lovely. Oh, that's so good, mommy. Oh, yeah, I like that. Oh, thank you, mommy. That's very nice. So she enjoys her food. And, you know, she's not a chubby little boy. She was a really rotund, chubby little thing. She's, you know, she's growing out of it now, but she still enjoys her food. And she's funny, and she's always in a good mood. She's always, except when sometimes she wakes up, or when sometimes she just gets in a bad mood, and then she's like, "Oh my fucking god, you need a crowbar to change that little brain." But she generally has the ability to put everybody in a good mood because she's just funny and laughs and always happy, pretty much. And then the little one is like more serious than little mini me, and she looks a little bit like a turtle because she kind of really looks like me, except she's got blue eyes. Because, you know, my mom had blue eyes and my wife's got blue eyes. So, and she's funny though. They're all funny in their own little way, and you know, it's quite cool how they all get on and the relationships between them, and you know, how they piss each other off and yet how they're really close, and it's really quite interesting. And yeah, you know, my older daughter is essentially, I think she's going to be a great mom because she's already got it in, you know, all my kids are pretty like, I don't know, a little bit of autism or Asperger's, or, because, you know, my wife's got it too. We both have like smart, but a little bit of Asperger's is in there. And I think all our kids have got an element of it. You know, my daughter's already pretty fixated. She's like, yeah, I'm going to have 2 kids and I'll have them in my early to mid 20s. But I need to like know a guy for at least 3 or 4 years before I decide to marry him because I'm Catholic, and you know I'm gonna make sure that I stay. And I was like, I didn't, I didn't force any of this in her head. She's like, you know, that this is what I'm gonna do, and it's like, oh, okay, great. You know, she's like on the right path. Hopefully, I just hope she finds the right guy, whatever. But you know, I think she's gonna be a great mom because just the way I see her with her little siblings, she's already like awesome. You know, she thinks about them and thinks about what's good for them and how to play with them, and really quite impressive. Willie Ram says, never had my own children, but holding and caring for my younger siblings is a memory I hope to hold on to. There you go. See, that's also important. Sam Werb, I grew up and went to school with Italians, Poles, Serbs and Greeks. I rather envied the large extended family way of life. If you got into dispute with one, you might have to fight all of them, and for years. That's also true. Remember, a big family means you already got a little tribe. You already got your little, you know, city-state right there. I mean, if I just think, I mean, we started late. You know, we're slackers. Me and my wife have got 5 kids, and you know, I'm in my 50s. She's in her very early 40s. We're slackers. We only have 5 kids. One of the couples we know, they've got 7. Another one of the couples, I've lost count. I think they have 5 or 6. I can't remember. They're quite a bit younger than us. You know, if you put 4 Catholic families next to each other, you've got a small village. You know, just those 3 families. You know, if you just count the kids, we've already got almost 20 kids between us, and then you count the adults, it's another 6. We got 30 people right there. Just 3 families. It's like, it's quite impressive. Now, what if you have 10 families like that? Now you've got a village, and they're all thinking the same kind of way. They all help each other out. They're not about money. They're about family. They're about what matters. They're about the human element of it. You can say, I don't like Catholics, but you show me a Protestant community that does that outside of the Amish. I don't see that happening in Protestants. They might call that a good game, but really when push comes to shove, it's every man for himself, pretty much. I have never had the kind of loyalty and friendship that I have with actual Catholics. Even between my martial arts friends that I was with for years, and we went through hard stuff together. Your average hardcore sedevacantist is a stand-up guy that is an uncommon person, put it that way. Sylvester Rep. I'm actually 4'11" goblin, not a 9, and I don't mind my model. I've actually, you guys have met Sylvester because he did a stream with me. He's actually a very good-looking young man, and yeah, but he's making fun of the idea of your average gamma that goes, well, I'm 4'11" and I'm a goblin, but any man can have any woman. No, it's nonsense. Don't believe the pickup artist bullshit. You gotta just see reality as it is and take on what's that. Snow says, I was a good woman once, but now I'm too old and ugly to even be dateable. So yeah, 53 and going to die alone. Again, what you believe is what you create. If you believe that way, you're going to think that way. If you believe that way, you're not going to go on some website for over 50s or whatever. You're not even going to look. And maybe if a man does look your way, you're like, eh. When you're in your 50s, as a woman, you're not going to make any more children. So that part of life you can forget about. And it's not about companionship and being together with somebody and getting to your old age together. And there's plenty of men in their 50s or 60s or whatever that are lonely. They maybe are not the best looking guy, but they're maybe really gentle. They're maybe really kind. Maybe they're really good men. There's no reason that anyone needs to be alone. I wouldn't say it's necessarily a choice that you make consciously, but it's a choice that you kind of make because of bullshit that you believe about yourself or about others or about the world. I guarantee you there's someone out there that can and would and will love you. You just gotta look for them. And yes, it's a numbers game in terms of you gotta get 1,000 no's before you get a really decent yes. But so what? It's the same for everybody. And like I said, nowadays it's more polarized. Before you had to get 1,000 no's or 10,000 no's to get a really decent yes. Now you only got to get 100 no's because, the other 900, you already know they're no's because they're no's for you, So now you just got 100 to select from. And of those 100, you'll probably find a couple of yeses. So don't think negatively. The negative thinking, you've been trained to think negatively. You've been trained to think impossible. And that's the mass media. That's the shit you watch on the internet. That's the YouTube and TikTok and all that crap. In civilized Catholic society in 1565, the 600 Knights of Malta that knew they were going to get fucking attacked by the Muslims to the tune of 40,000 of them, they built 2 castles, 2 fortified castles in 6 months. And they didn't have JCBs. You show me 600 men today that would say, yeah, we can build 2 castles in 6 months with huge rocks and stuff to then hold off a 40,000 Muslim invasion. You show me that today. Where are these 600 guys? I'm one of them. And compared to the guys that were on Malta in 1565, I'd probably be considered, the gay water boy that they were just used to, just bring us the food, you're too weak to actually be a man. It's like, what? You've got to believe in the impossible. You've got to do the impossible. The whole system of martial art thing that, I said, if I could reduce karate to one sentence, it would be failure is acceptable. Giving up is not. That's karate in a nutshell, which means you can die, you can be destroyed, but that doesn't matter. The mission is important. So your value is less than 0, less than the mission. Systema would be do the impossible and survive. The value of you is 1. You have to survive because otherwise you can't do the impossible. You know, it's a very different, positive way of thinking. You've got to think of that stuff. Willie Ram says, well, random dude just walked into my shop and told me to buy a gun because World War III is starting. Well, you're in Israel, so you're closer to it than I am, but yeah. World War III started 3 years ago, but anyway. Nationalist popped in to say hello and that he's got to go work. Oh, he's going to listen at work tomorrow. Okay. Whatever. I'm not judging. And so, yeah, that's the concept of finding a good wife. Do the big concepts and then realize that the little stuff is going to be hard and you just got to work through it. Okay, that's basically it. Now to move on to the World War III stuff, since it seems to be what's coming up. Here in the Netherlands where I grew up, 3 families, all 1 kid each. So boring. In my street, an extended family. Yeah, that's true of most Protestant countries. I read, who was it? I sent this picture to my wife on Telegram. It was like, I think she was Miss America, and she's married to some guy who's got like a cowboy hat, and they're on a farm on a ranch in America, and they've got like 7 kids, and she looks smoking hot, and they've got these 7 kids, and the husband looks like a cool looking dude, and I sent her that, like, you know, life goals. And she's like, oh, shut up, fuck off. but kind of like, she was lying in bed the other day, and she's like, God, I do love babies though. I love their smell. And I'm like, but she said, look, you know, she's got this name that she wants to give, that she wanted to give my son to begin it. And I was like, no. She goes, okay, but if we have another boy, then I'm going to have that name. I was like, oh, okay. But I didn't tell her if we have a girl, I'll get to name her. So we'll see. We'll see if we can have more or not. But we're kind of stretching it to the limits here. So I don't know. But you know, if it is meant to be, then it will. Sam says, did anyone see the Tyson Fury fight last night? I think he's the laziest white man alive after me. Pathetic. No, I didn't see the Tyson Fury fight, but I happen to be a Tyson Fury fan. In fact, I did a blog post about, that included him a while back. So just go to the search me function, type in Tyson Fury. I didn't see the fight, but tell us about it, Sam. Why was he lazy? That guy's had a hard fucking life, and he's still married to his childhood sweetheart. They have 7 kids, I think. I don't know the guy. I never met him, but I quite like him. I like the way he just tells the media to fuck off, and when the journalists try and give him shit, he just goes, Jesus is Lord, Jesus is Lord. That's it. Fuck them up. Snow says, you're correct about all of those things. I have a lot of work to do on myself, and even more work that God needs to do on me that only He can do. Don't worry about God. God will do His own thing. You work your ass off. You know, like my grandma used to say, help yourself and the sky helps you. God helps you. You know, you got to work your ass off. You know what? You know those guys that were all like hardcore Catholics, like the Knights of Malta, or just some random nameless farmer that you never hear about, that worked his ass off with his scythe, you know, going up the hill, like cutting out the grain, and then like going down the hill, cutting out the grass after the grain grew up, and, you know, collecting the grain by hand and making it into. Those guys worked their ass off. They worked their whole life, and then they'd go to church on Sunday and put their best clothes on, which they maybe only had 1 pair of, because now that I'm kind to be a farmer, all my clothes have got, I don't think I've got any. I don't remember the last time I bought, my wife bought me some t-shirts, which probably all have holes in them now because I tend to forget, and then, I need to do that, and I'll end up climbing on the roof and getting pitch on me or some shit, you know. I'll tear a t-shirt up, and it's just, you know, you can't be a farmer and be chic. Not unless you have a shitload of money anyway. And then you're not really a farmer. You're more like a driver and, you know, a truck operator and a manager of other people. And yeah, okay. Willie Ram says, as for World War III, most of the street lights are off and there is the constant rumble of jet planes above. Well, they're bombing the crap out of Gaza as far as I am. Somewhere says, I'm a Fury fan too, but he clearly didn't train. Okay. And Willie Ram says, and the normies are so nervous our booze shelves are half empty. Well, there's a boom for booze. That's what they say in wartime, you know, ammunition, booze, and drugs like really sell, apparently. Right, surviving World War III. That was the main topic. If you're in Europe, same sort of thing. You know, if you're in America, surviving World War III is maybe even easier as long as you're far away from big cities. Oh, I'm gonna have to go and watch this Fury fight. Snow says, I watched that fight live. No one in the world could have predicted any one of those rounds of boxing. No one. Maybe the most delusional person in the world might have guessed how that fight would go. So who won? Did Tyson Fury win or not? Or did he get the shit kicked out of him? By whom, by the way? Who was he fighting? I'm so out of touch with like the modern world. So yeah, if you're going to survive World War III in Europe, rule number one, be away from any big city. Just don't. You don't want to be in any big city in Europe because that's where the big fights happen. Whether it's land invasion or whether it's nukes, nobody's gonna waste a nuke on some little hamlet in the middle of nowhere, but they will waste a nuke on a big military base or a town that's near one and so on. So rule number one is be away from that. Rule number two. The rules for weapons ownership in Europe are different in different European countries. Generally speaking, in most European countries, I think you have to be a citizen and not have a criminal record to have a firearm. Some places are maybe a bit more difficult than other places to get one, but generally speaking, you can get certainly shotguns and things like that, but even pistols, rifles, AR-15s, they're all generally available. The myth that the Americans think that, oh, Europeans can't have guns is not actually true. It is controlled and you've got to have a license and there's a waiting period, which can be several months, but it all happens. You can have weapons as long as you're not, as I said, a criminal and as long as you're a citizen of that country. In most cases, the laws differ from place to place. I don't know what the laws in Latvia are compared to Greece or even Spain, but most Europeans can go skeet shooting. Most Europeans can go target shooting. It's just an activity like anything else. It's just that most Europeans are not as gung-ho and they don't have the same facility, they don't have the same quickness of owning a firearm that the Americans have. So most of them are like, well, I don't need a gun. I'm not into that sport. The idea of having a gun for self-defense is not big in Europe. And in most cases really not really allowed by the law to a certain extent. In order to have an actual concealed carry permit, certainly in Italy, it's very rare. Only people that have a specific reason for having it. Like I think if you own a jewelry store, if you own a gun shop store, then you can potentially have a concealed carry permit. But usually you have to have good reasons to have it. If there's some kind of, I don't know, infatidity or fatwa on you or something, probably you can get one. But the only thing that lost in that fight was boxing itself. Tyson Fury wins by 1 point decision in a 10-round max limit match. Good. Fury won a split decision after taking a third-round knockdown from a slow, wide left hook. He looked sloppy and blasé. You know what? Good for him. Celeb Cannon says, seek first the kingdom of heaven. God will deliver a spouse if it is his will. Whether they're a good or bad spouse, there will be your cross to bear. Good attitude. That's a very good attitude because in actual fact, in a boxing match against an MMA guy, and so he won. So fuck it, good for him. Good for Tyson Fury. I'm all for that, man. But Caleb is right, because if I think about it now, so I had my revelation in 2013, which was a blow to the head, and then I was working in Italy for the whole of 2016, pretty much, and Italy, and well, I was based in Italy, but I was around the world really. And about late 2013, 2014, I'd realized that like the chances of me ever being in an actual long-term relationship, marriage, or anything like that were like essentially nil. And it was when I read the passage in Ephesians that I really understood what marriage was about, and how it should be, and what it should look like. That I just thought, well, I'm light years away from anything even remotely reminiscent of that. I understand that that's the good thing, and I know how far I am from it. So I kind of didn't really worry about it, didn't really think about it. And but I had, in any case, curbed somewhat my hedonistic ways with women to a certain extent. In some ways, yes. In some ways, I got even worse. But overall, I wasn't cycling through as many women in as brief periods of time, because I was essentially just sort of like, maybe I could find someone that I could just kind of grow old together in this miserable life and just not make it like terrible. And I actually spent quite a lot of time with a woman that was essentially extremely toxic, but I kind of felt sorry for her, so it was bad all around. And I had plenty of warnings to like just move away from, leave this alone. But I had no fear. When you don't have much to lose, you don't have. I was never a very scared guy to begin with, and when you don't have much to lose, I'm sort of like, yeah, well, there's a dumpster fire there. Oh, look at that! I wonder if I can roast my marshmallows on it. Yeah, how hot is it? Well, that side of the dumpster's not on fire yet. Maybe there's some good shit in that garbage down there. Let me just go check it out. That's kind of. So, anyway, but yeah, the weird thing is that I was getting more and more into like Christianity, Catholicism, God, and I was talking about it with my now wife, but in a very platonic sort of way. And over time, funnily enough, I mean, I'd known her, before. I met her like 10 years before that. And, but in talking, just on messages and so on, we kind of got to know each other quite a lot better, actually, which was probably the only way it could work for us, because, she's very beautiful, and I'm kind of, not exactly a dog in any way. I kind of know how to talk to women. So we were always going to be busy with somebody else. And if we weren't busy with somebody else, as it happens, when we actually, did spend any time together, it was very quick that we ended up together. So the only way to really get to know each other quite deeply at a level that removed the whole sexual stuff was by talking on messages for about a year or so. And we got to figure out certain aspects of each other and how we thought about things. And these are not necessarily, keep in mind that when a woman tells you, oh, this is what I want, this is what I like, this is what I'm really into, she's not lying to you. She's telling you what she really thinks and believes, but that doesn't mean that that's how she's going to act, or that that's what she can really do. There's quite a distance between, what you would like to be like and what you are actually like. That's true of all of us, but that gap is generally a lot bigger in women than it is in men, partly as a result of their lower ability to perceive reality when it reflects upon themselves in a negative fashion. A man is generally more able to say, oh, I'm an asshole about that, but whatever. A woman is like, no, I'm not an asshole about that. that thing is wrong, and I'm right about it. That's generally how women think as a general rule. So, but that doesn't mean she doesn't want those things. It means she does, but there may be some work required to get there. And as it happens, I mean, if I think about it, it was from 2013 to 2017, so what, 4 years. I went from thinking, whoa, the actual possibility of me being married and being with someone that is just absurdly ridiculous, it will never happen again. And 4 years later, I'm with a person that I've now been married to for 6 years or whatever, 5 years. Yeah, 5 years married, but 6 years we're together, sort of thing. And it's great, and she's great, and things are good. That doesn't mean things are always easy or necessarily all smooth all the time, but it doesn't matter. That's the whole point. Remember what I was saying about the zeitgeist? You've got to focus on what's important and not the shit that comes your way, because there's always going to be shit. So, getting back to the whole World War III thing, if you've now found the right person, and it doesn't need to be in that order. You might find the right place to survive World War III before you find the right person, or vice versa. Because believe me, by the way, if World War III happens and it's a hot war and there's going to be, whatever, roaming Russians, roaming Palestinians, Israelis, random refugees roaming the lands, and it's all every man for himself and little communities fending off marauding hordes of zombies. Well, guess what? It'll be real easy to pick the right person then, the right wife, the right man, because all those like princesses that want a Ferrari and they want a man that earns at least $1 million and that's got like plastic teeth and whatever, those will be streetwalkers. They will sell their own mother just to they will do any sexual thing to just get a can of tuna. And they won't be the kind of people you want to marry. They'll just be like flotsam. They'll be human wreckage. The kind of woman that you will want to marry is the one that goes, dude, protect me. I'll look after the kids. I'll cook. I'll mend your socks. I'll reload the ammunition. Whatever. I'll shoot if you teach me how. Those are the kind of women, and those women will be suddenly everywhere. Feminism will disappear. There's never been a war zone where feminism raised its head. It doesn't exist. In a war zone, there is no feminism. It's men are men and women are women. It becomes very clear. There's no, gender confusion or any of that shit. So, paradoxically, if there is World War III, it'll be a lot easier to find a right wife or husband. But in order to survive it, first be out of the cities, have a number of weapons that is sufficient to protect you and your family if it goes bad. If that becomes a needed thing, then that becomes a needed thing. So don't shy away from that. And, as I mentioned, I think I did this. I think I've done my 5 favorite handguns, my 5 favorite long guns, and my 5 guns if I had to be teleported anywhere. But I haven't done a favorite weapons for like World War III. But basically, you need like a handgun of some sort that's concealable, that you can carry on you. You need a shotgun, home defense. You need essentially what is an assault rifle or a semi-automatic rifle of some sort for medium-range stuff. And you need a long-range rifle for long-range stuff. You need those 4 weapons as a generic global minimum. But, if you only have 2, you only have a pistol and a rifle, well, make that work. But, if you have a large family, then why not get guns for every member of the family? If they can all get gun licenses, why not? And if the shit hits the fan and you've got a large family, but the rest of your family maybe didn't have the age or the correct things to get the gun licenses, but it's now war, there is no rule of law, there is no laws anymore, it's all anarchy and whatever, well, guess what? Suddenly your 15-year-old son, who theoretically couldn't shoot a gun, well, now he can. So if you have more than a few, better. have ammunition, and I put those things in that order. Be away from a city and have weapons as the two most important things, because the weapons you might never use. Okay, if the shit doesn't hit the fan, if everything stays more or less okay, even if there is a war but it doesn't come to your area, you might never need to use weapons at all. But like the old saying goes, it really is better to have a gun and never need it than need a gun and not have it. It's a big difference. So to me, those two rules are the first two rules. The next rule is try and be as self-sufficient as possible, which leads into how do you become really off-grid. To really go off-grid, it takes a lot of money, a lot of effort, or a lot of both. I know a guy that was essentially made millions, played in the stock market for like 16 years obsessively, and then sort of like said, fuck it, now I've got the money, I'm going to do what I want, and did that. He bought a nice big house, he built all the defenses on it, he's got a shitload of guns, and he went full out, made it fully solar panel integrated that he doesn't need to be connected to the grid. I think he is, but he can just the grid goes off, it doesn't matter, he's got power for everything. I don't remember if he did a wind thing as well, but he definitely had a lot of solar that was enough for where he lived. His own well, so he's got his own water supply, his own energy supply, and I think he had like tractors and stuff, and he was hiring people to do the farming. Which, guess what? If you're hiring, this guy's in America, so he was in the States, he was hiring random Mexican people to do his farming, and if the shit hits the fan there, those random guys that were helping him do the farming, it could go either way. They could become his worst enemy. They could become the people that kill him to take the shit he's got. Or they could become people that are like, hey, patron, you keep helping us, you keep feeding us, we'll protect you, we'll help you. You don't know, that 50-50. If you're doing it all yourself, or you're surrounding yourself with Catholic people that are of your same kind of ideology, and you're sharing the tools, you're sharing the tractors, you're sharing the land, then a lot safer. So while community is, I would definitely put it as a number 3 thing after, don't be in a city, have weapons. Number 3 is actually community. But that's harder to create. It's not something you can create yourself. What you can create yourself is you can be self-sufficient. You can build a well. You can create some kind of greenhouse and grow your crops in there. You can learn how to farm animals. You can learn to have chickens. You can learn to have goats. You can learn to do that stuff. But if I was going to put it, if money were no object, then I would say, yeah, don't be in the city, have weapons, have your own energy production, which is for the most part solar panels. Even in northern latitudes, it can work. It's a pain in the ass. It's really expensive. It doesn't mean you'll always be able to run anything, but yeah, have your own ability to generate your own electric energy. Have some generators on the side, just in case, and store petrol if you can, store gas if you can, but have your own electric grid if possible. That would be the next thing. And then have your own water supply. Either, with rain, it has to be filtered. With like wells, again, it might need filtering. So that's the most important thing, because water, you need water. You can only go about 3 days without water. And then food generation. If you can have all those things, the most money, the thing that'll cost you the most, apart from the actual property and the land, is the energy generation. Generating enough energy to have the minimum amount of electricity that you need to run a fridge, or to run your power tools, or to charge your power tools. You need to have that. You need to have clean water, access to clean water, or at least water that can be purified and drank and used for cooking, and eventually washing too, but second, that's a second sort of thing. And be as self-sufficient as possible. Now, for a solar panel system that sort of will run an average household with a number of Catholic kids, you need to spend at least 30 grand, 30, 40 grand. I'm talking euro, but I think it's similar amounts. And you really want to be spending 50 if you can. So that's not a small amount of money. You know, if you buy a property of a decent size with a bit of land and you want to put a power grid on it, you know, a solar grid on it, you're looking at hundreds of thousands of dollars or euros or whatever. In Europe, you can buy relatively large amounts of land with a relatively small, second-hand, half-used, a bit collapsing farmhouse for under 200 grand. You can buy a decent piece of land with, like, you know, big house on it. I got essentially ripped off because I was coming from overseas, COVID was going on, prices were inflated, and it is what it is. You know, but nowadays in Europe, you can probably, for 200 grand, you can find a place that will cost you 150 and you can shove in a nice, good solar panel system that will run it. So for 200 grand in Europe, at least in Italy, I don't know, you know, probably in Spain, in Portugal, probably less than that. In Portugal, probably 100 grand, 120, 150 grand is enough. You know, there's upsides and downsides to everything. So it's something worth thinking about, worth doing. Water well, probably not as expensive to create, but again, you need to know the water table, you need to know where it's possible, where it's not possible. If you can't do a water well, try and do like some rain catchment, but you know, weather is, who knows, and who knows what they shoot in that shit that they make the weather with. So it needs to be filtered, you need to have decent water filters, you need to have really good water filters regardless. If you want to use tap water, I'd still have a really good water system, which is something I still don't have. So, you know, there's a lot of stuff to going off grid. It takes a lot of money. So if you don't have a lot of money, then, you know, it's those three things: quality, money, time, right? If you don't have money, it's time. You're going to work your ass off. So if you want high quality, you either need a lot of time or a lot of money. If you want to save time and you want to have quality, then you need a lot of money. If you don't have a lot of money and you want quality, then you've got to spend a lot of time on it. If you don't have money and you don't care too much about quality, you can get away with creating something that sort of works. Looks like shit, probably isn't ideal, but you know, in an emergency, I'd rather start off. There's a guy on YouTube, I forget his name. He started off in a tent with like a drill and like a handsaw or something in winter in the UK. And over the next 6-7 years, he's built a big house, he's built a workshop, and you know, he's really done a lot of cool shit. And he started out freezing his ass off in a fucking tent in winter in England. So it can be done, but it takes time. It took him years to get to where he is, you know. And he worked his ass off, like, constantly. So, and he didn't have a lot of money. He just had enough money to buy some property, and then he could build a house on it. In Italy, that's hard to do, because if you buy land in Italy and it's not zoned for building a house on it, they can, you know, come after you, knock it down, depending on where you are. Yeah. Let me read a few of these things. Hello, Henry Martin. He's made a very good comment, which I'll get to now. Sam says, thank you for the stream. Bye, friends. Back later, I hope. Woolly Ram, World War III again. Any precise way to read between the news lines beyond they always lie? Okay, I'll get on to that next. Snow. Even if Disney films Mary Poppins, they reveal just how fragile the suffragette movement was in light of potential warfare and defending home and country. It takes back a back burner when family has needs. The biggest danger is urban warfare, and Israel is engaged in what will probably be up to 3 years of urban warfare right now. Obstacle number one is street gangs. I've just written a thing on urban warfare. I don't know if Snow has read it, because she seems to be on the same wavelength there. It's quite a long blog post, and it's called Urban Warfare Concepts, done on the 29th of October. Yes, urban warfare is the worst, which is why I say stay out of the cities. Because if you don't get nuked in a big city, the next thing is roaming street gangs. When there's no more law and order, cops just become men with guns. If you think that they're going to uphold law and order when everything else around them is crumbling, you're dreaming. Cops to begin with are not the most ethical people. That's why they became cops. A lot of cops are essentially thugs that were too stupid to be proper criminals without government sanction. So there's that. And soldiers are just as bad, sometimes even worse. So urban warfare is the worst place you want to be in. It's the worst place to be caught in, especially if you have a family, especially if you've got little children. I mean, if I were, when I was living in Venice, and I thought, oh well, what if World War III happens in Venice? Short of them bombing Venice out of, just nuking it, which morally would be very difficult to do. The whole world would be like, dude, that is like, there's only one city like that on the planet, and you fucking bombing it. What the fuck are you doing? So morally, the morality of war would go against people doing that. And if they were to send, troops in a place like Venice, at the time I was just single, living by myself there. I was like, dude, I don't even need a gun. I just need a hammer. And I just hide in one of the doorways of like the calle where you can only go down one at a time. I just don't get the first guy, take his gun. Don't get the second guy, take his gun, and just shoot a couple of shots down. In Venice it would be, a knife is enough to like arm yourself pretty much if you're a bit careful and you watch what you're doing. If you become occupied, guerrilla warfare is always preferable to, stand and fight on the field sort of thing. Henry Martin says, looking at farms in Portugal with decent buildings and water, 60K. There you go. I had originally looked at Portugal because, it was very cheap. And when I visited, I quite like it. I speak Portuguese well enough that, within a week or so, I'd be able to be pretty fluent with it. Within a month, it would be, maybe some things I wouldn't pronounce properly or whatever, but within a month, I'd be fluent in Portuguese to get through anything. The only thing is that, the gun thing. If you're not a citizen, you can't buy the guns there. It takes a while to become a citizen and whatever. I'm sure there's ways around it, but I didn't necessarily want to explore all of that. And, in Italy, I'm a citizen. I kind of know the language. I kind of know that it's not as... I think Portugal is probably an easier place to live and make it, viable than Italy. I would say definitely, probably. But again, I'm not Portuguese, and I wasn't going to marry a Portuguese, so yeah, it is what it is. And Wooly Ram says, according to Israeli news sites, the north is starting to heat up with missile launches and incursion attempts. I wouldn't trust the mainstream media, Wooly Ram. I think what's going on in Israel is that they want to wipe out the Palestinians, pretty much. It's not a secret. I mean, your own president has talked about like civilians being legitimate targets and whatever. So, and I think that the first incursion that they did to the IDF, the Hamas guys kicked their ass. I actually think they had a shitload of losses from the Israeli, military force. And they're trying to cover it up. They've made a complete news blackout. They've like jammed like phones and any information coming out of Gaza is now blocked by Israel, which means they can act with impunity. The jets that are flying over are definitely not Palestinians. They're all Israeli bombing the crap out of civilian areas. So they've credibly, a couple of days ago already, killed over 7,000 civilians. And that, I believe that is a very conservative number, by the way. I think there's probably a lot more than that. A lot of those people are children. The Palestinians have quite a high number of children per head, sort of thing. The Hamas incursion in Israel was clearly known about by Israel. They either let it happen or maybe even designed it to happen. They were warned by the CIA on 3 different occasions. They were warned by Egypt 3 days ahead of time. And there's now credible reports that IDF soldiers that were like watching the border like mentioned this. They said, oh, you know, something's brewing, they're about to come, there's something's going to happen, and they were ignored. So, you know, I've done a recent blog post about that, where it's amazing how essentially a lot of talking heads also in the States are essentially calling for genocide of Palestinians, and nobody's, the mainstream media sort of like, oh, well, that's okay. So like, you know, Biden like shitting his pants on stage or whatever and saying the nonsense that he says. Imagine if Trump had done that, or imagine if, you know, some Arab nation was saying, oh, we should just wipe out all the Jews, you know, it would be all over the news, like, oh, it's intolerable. But, you know, there's different rules for different people, apparently. You're not allowed to criticize certain events that supposedly happened 70 years ago, or say that they didn't happen, you know, if certain ethnicities are involved. But, yeah. Gaijin TV says, Ohio Kurgan-san, from a packed Monday morning, Osaka train. Hey, what can we expect here in Asia? I think Asia is pretty, it's actually pretty chilled out, because I was talking to my friend in Kazakhstan, and she was like, yeah, I feel pretty cool in Kazakhstan, because we've only got a population of 13 million. It's a huge country, and everything is just like in a city. So, you know, even when they had that sort of their version of the Maidan pushed by the Americans, which she confirmed is like, yep, that's what I think. And they were all locked down. They were like, they had to stay indoors for like 3-4 days, a week or something. And it was like, how was it? You know, it's like, it was fucking terrible, because like we didn't know what the fuck was going on. And it's like, what if you don't have food at home? Well, just drink drink water out of the tap. That was it. Because nobody was allowed out. Nobody wanted to go out anyway, because there were people shooting in the street and stuff. Because man, but they got rid of everything real quick. They like fucking squashed it. And you know, she's got a little place out in the middle of nowhere in the tundra somewhere or whatever, in the flatlands, which cost her like 500 euro, like literally cost 500 euro to buy like a property out there. And she goes, why don't you buy one? I'm like, yeah, dude, I'm not really planning to like travel to Kazakhstan to go and see my 500 euro farm in the middle of fucking nowhere very often. But yeah, you know, hey, well, why not? If you want to go and live in Kazakhstan, I don't know what the rules for living there are, or whatever. And she was telling me like, why don't you come here, you know? It's like, dude, yeah, you know, I've got kids. It's not like so easy to move. And, you know, they would have to learn if they go to a public school, what they're supposed to speak Russian. The poor little guys are not even speaking Italian yet. And she's like, oh, you know, you can go to like foreign schools, you know, like English schools. I'm like, oh yeah, and what do those cost? Like, oh, they're a ridiculous amount of money. But, you know, hey, come here, we make a business. You know, she's like, she's funny that way. What was it? Oh, Woolly Ram says, yeah, trying to reconstitute the Israeli nation around this just war. Yeah. It's absolute nonsense. The whole world is basically going against it. I mean, even the UN resolution, I was quite surprised. In the UN resolution, there was only 14 countries out of 134 that said no. And who were they? The United States. Oh, surprise, surprise. Obviously Israel. Austria. You know, I mean, maybe they're feeling guilty about their guy Adolf. I don't know. Croatia, which is pretty much bought and paid for. Czech Republic, which, again, I don't know. Fiji, Guatemala, Marshall Islands, Micronesia, Nauru, Papua New Guinea, and Paraguay, and Tonga, which are all, you know, completely irrelevant to pretty much the whole world. The one that surprised me was Hungary. Hungary voted no. And I wonder if Viktor Orban was involved there, or I don't know. That was a bit of a surprise. But even places like Italy, which are completely under the thumb of the United States, we've got over 150 United States American bases here, and a completely corrupt, you know, our government is essentially, you know, Meloni was in her 20s, she was an occultist, like full-blown World Economic Forum, you know, puppet. And they abstained. They didn't vote, which I was quite surprised by it. So the whole world is kind of like watching what Israel is doing and saying, dude, really? You think we're just going to believe your bullshit words, which are obvious lies, like over the fact that you're actually bombing children, hospitals, churches, you know, the fuck. So yeah, Willie Ram says, can't see the Matrix anymore, just programming attempts. Very good. Gaijin TV says, Voxan speculated that Japan could change sides. Thoughts? Yes. Japan is, again, completely under the thumb of... it's funny that you say, I didn't read that part. I didn't read what Vox said about Japan, but in my own blog post, what did I wrote? Yeah, I am frankly amazed that Italy and Japan merely abstained, along with another 43 countries that abstained. Consider that Italy has some 150 American bases on our territory and a completely USA deep state and WF compromised government. Japan is completely under the US thumb, but they're still very Japanese and they're very nationalistic. And I think, you know, apart from whoever their puppets are, the average Japanese person would like nothing better than to say, Yankee go home, and get rid of them and go back to their being fully Japanese. You know, there's also quite a big buffer zone there, because if America is busy in the Mediterranean, as they seem to be, what's the next big problem they might have is China. And that's probably what's holding them back, because if China becomes a problem, then America would want to have Japan as their base of operations. Possibly the Philippines as well. And Australia, but the closest, easiest place would be Japan. But if Japan manages to throw off the shackles and sort of go, hey, fuck off Americans, we don't want you here, you know, that's not going to be so easy for America, which is now getting spread out between the shit that's going on at home, because, mark my words, 2024, you know, what are they going to do? They're going to put Trump in jail? How's that going to work for the rest of the country? They're going to have an election in 2024? Who are they putting up from the Democratic Party? There's really no one to vote for other than Trump. And if they try and put him in jail or get him disqualified somehow, the whole country's going to lose their shit. I don't know. I think America's pretty close to civil war as it is. They've got this whole thing in Israel that, you know, the people running America, which are not Americans, are obviously full on board with Israel because it's their country. You know, the people running the states are more loyal to Israel than they are to America, of course. So they're going to put their eggs in that basket. And I think that the Israelis are completely miscalculated, and pretty soon, if they carry on doing that shit, there's going to be incursions from anything. You know, it could kick off at any point, from Turkey, Iran, Syria. They're like attacking random people in Syria. There's been a couple of missiles landing in Egypt. You know, if Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Iran, Syria, and Turkey decide, you know what, we've had enough of these Jews, well, Israel is just going to become a greasy spot. And I don't give a shit how many nukes they have, because if those guys decide to coordinate their shit and attack, even if Israel has the Samson option and they set up a bunch of nukes in all the capital cities, where? Moscow, Rome, London, New York, and they blame it on the Arabs or the Russians, well, then maybe we enter proper full-blown nuclear war. Or maybe not. Maybe people just go like, hey, you know, I think these were the kind of the Israeli guys doing their Samson option that they've conspiracy theoried about for years. Yeah, okay, we lost some cities, fuck it, let them deal with their own shit. And then what? You know, there's like over 100 million people in that region that don't really like Israel, so it's going to be tough for them to survive that. And once that happens, if Israel gets wiped off the map, nuclear or not, well, then you've got the other Jews that are living outside of Israel, that everybody's going to be thinking, you motherfuckers started this shit. Somehow you're responsible for this shit. the nukes going off in the Samson option would definitely make them even more upset. So, you know, it's not a good day to be a Jew, I think, generally speaking. And the way they're going about things, the way they're talking about, yeah, well, all the Palestinians are guilty. Well, guess what? If genocide is acceptable for Jews to do, then genocide is acceptable for other people to do to the Jews too. So you kind of really shot yourself in the foot there. Or should I say, put yourself in a concentration camp somewhere. It's just like, they're just completely going about this absolutely wrong. So let's see. Woolly Ram, Guy Jing, didn't your finance minister try to invite Black Lake, or was that some fake news? Don't know about Black Lake, Woolly Ram, son, but they shot the fuck out of Abe, son. Yeah, that the Japanese guy who shot the Abe dude with a homemade shotgun, and when they arrested him, he just said, well, I think his comment was, I was unsatisfied with his performance, of the ex-prime minister of Japan. He just blasted him with, and I'm like, well, that's your average Japanese. They're a little bit, underwhelming in their innocence. I was unsatisfied with his performance. I wonder what he would have done if he was really pissed off. Just he blew the guy away with his homemade shotgun. So Snow says, hypothetically, Trump could actually begin his presidency in 2024, 2025 from prison. It's not against the Constitution because this is unprecedented territory. There was an entire parade of Hamas sympathizers in London, England, shouting mantras of gas the Jews and their families and rape their daughters. Yeah, well, in Turkey, Erdogan, the president of Turkey, basically said we could come at any moment in the night. And he wasn't talking about, bringing Christmas cheer or anything. So I think in Japan, Sadiq Khan made it a 14-year jail sentence offense to be supportive of Hamas. I don't know the details of that, but I think it's fucking hilarious that an Indian guy who's running the country decides to make it a jail term if you if you're pro Hamas or against Israel or whatever it is. It's just like, fuck the, I'm Generation X. I'm just sitting here watching the world burn while I drink my Verdecchio. And Snow says, I think the greatest foible of the Jewish people is their inability to forgive. I think you get banned for saying it, but I think Jesus said something about them in Revelation, about their synagogue, something. I forget. Woolly Ram says, what seems likely to me is that sooner or later Israel will be reined in, the current government will collapse, and whoever is nominated by the powers that be will have to deal with the hostage situation and diplomatic situation. I tend to agree with you, but current events as they're happening don't seem to go that way. I know there's a lot of Israeli Jewish people in Israel that are no fans of Netanyahu or even of what's happening. There's a lot of Jewish people actually sort of saying, hey, we should stop this shit, and the Palestinians are people too. There's a group of Orthodox Jews that actually is against Israel being an actual nation. They're saying yes to the Jewish beliefs and religion, no to Zionism. So yeah, it's quite a thing. Snow says nopes, LOL. I don't know what that's in reference to. Gaijin TV says Abe, no offense. I don't know what that means. Wish you all could experience this beautiful country, so kind, honest, and racially pure. Japan is awesome. When I went to Japan, I loved it. Japan is one of the countries that I think I could live in. Partly because I'm a bakadaijin, a stupid foreigner, because being a stupid foreigner, I can get away with certain slightly less polite things that the Japanese would never get away with. But I can just be a stupid foreigner when I need to and just, well, you need to work 18-hour days here? No, I'm just a guy Jing. I'll just work, 10 hours. Henry Martin says, I think some people in the world, by their own arrogance and psychopathy, have crossed the Rubicon, otherwise known as the finite fuck around, find out curve. I agree with you, Henry. I think so the same. Now, if you're going to survive World War III in America, I would say the same thing. Get away from the big cities. You're in America, so for God's sake, you should have an arsenal of weapons. And again, become self-sufficient as best you can. And always surround yourself with people that think like you, look like you, and have the same kind of values that you have. Sedevacantism is actually quite big in the United States, but the United States is very big, so it may be harder to create or fund or find a Sedevacantist community, but they do exist. So, maybe look into that. Henry Martin says, big anti-Zionist Jewish communities in London. Oh, that's interesting. There are quite big Jewish communities in London. I wasn't never familiar with them. I don't know much about them, but that's interesting to know. Willie Ram, if the actual war had started without the week of the green flag, there would have been less internal pressure, but it's just so hard to find able henchmen nowadays. It took too long to start the just war. Agreed. They had a very narrow. I think this is what I think. Guy Jing TV says, totally true. I call it playing the Guy Jing card. Yes, I know. I figured that out. See, if I was black, I'd be playing that card all the time. I'd also understand, when I get beaten the shit out of me with batons because I'm speeding. That's just one of the things you'd have to, put up with. Just like if I'm playing the Gaijin card in Japan and I do some stupid shit and some Japanese cops come up on me and they beat the crap out of me with batons, I'd be like, it's the Gaijin tax for playing the Gaijin card, It's all fair. It's all good. And, but yeah, so getting back to what I think happened in Israel, this is what I think happened. This is my opinion, whatever. I'm going on my educated guesses based on what I think is going on. I think the whole October 7th attack by Hamas was totally engineered by Israel itself. They either knew it was coming or they actually created it. I do believe that Hamas is very deeply infiltrated by Mossad. Mossad's statement, their motto is, by deception we shall make war. By deception we shall win. So I think the whole attack by the so-called Hamas guy was definitely known about. Israel absolutely knew about it. We know for a fact that they were warned about it repeatedly by numerous people, including their own people, and they did nothing about it. So what I think happened is the Hamas attack, if it was in fact Hamas that attacked them, because there are again very credible reports of actual IDF people saying that the people that shot in that kibbutz, one of the survivors of the kibbutz thing, is a lady that says that the people shooting at them and that shot a tank shell into the kibbutz were actually their own guys. They were Israeli soldiers shooting their own people. So whoever started that Hamas, theoretical Hamas assault on Israel, I think Israel absolutely knew about it, let it happen, if not actually made it happen. But in doing that, the actual full-blown regular army, or most of the large forces of the Israeli army, were probably not in on the whole thing, and so that took a while to foment them into the thing, into the fight and that. And there might have been some internal struggles of let's go and bomb everybody, and some maybe generals or whatever, colonels with a bit of a head on their shoulders going, hey, wait a fucking minute, what? How the fuck did this happen? How did you not know? Did we know? Let's just hold on a second. And then the Arab nations pretty quickly said, hey, if you guys just in mass going to Gaza, we're going to attack you. So that also put a bit of a damper on things. And America was like, oh, well, we're kind of far away. We have to take some time to get there. We have to send the big ships. So that took a while. And in the meantime, the whole world is like, wait, what? And you've already done an attack. There was talk that the Israelis were wanting to put nerve gas down the whole tunnels of Gaza. You know, it's a war crime. They did bomb that hospital, and they said they were going to bomb that hospital before they bombed the hospital, and they told people they're going to bomb the hospital. Then they bombed the hospital, and then they were all like, yeah, we bombed the hospital. And then the whole world was like, what the fuck are you doing? So then they were like, okay, well, it wasn't us. It was actually them. They bombed their own hospital. Yep, that's what happened. And deleted all the evidence that they had done it and that they said they would do it, and they did it. And they went to bomb an Orthodox church as well. And, you know, it's just like, fucking hell. Sam says Hamas attacked with paratroopers, presumably from airplanes. When did they acquire planes? No, they didn't attack with paratroopers. They attacked with paragliders. You know, those like things with a parachute with a little engine that just fly over. So yeah. And Guy Jintigi says, very much appreciate your input views. Hail the Kurgan. Off to work now. Domo arigato gozaimashita. You're most welcome, sir. I forgot what the response to Domo gozaimata is, but anyway, you're welcome. Let's see. Snow says, think like you and look like you. I posted... I hope you don't look like me if you're a woman. I posted something like that on Twitter X recently and tagged Elon Musk in it. Okay, is that what your name is on X? Like, I don't have Twitter. I was banned long ago at an IP level address, and I haven't even bothered to change phones. And I tried to let me just see if I go in, and I somehow managed to register by using a different thing. But then it's like when I try and go in it, it says, oh, something went wrong, and you can't, you know. So it's like, wait, you won't reinstate my original one. I can't even do that. And I'm super banned to the point that, like, even when I do manage to register an account, it like doesn't work, and it doesn't work on any devices. It's quite impressive, really. I got banned originally for posting a whole bunch of medical studies done on the links between homosexuality and pedophilia, and you know, putting out medical facts by medical professionals that are meta studies done all over the world got me permanently banned. I wonder why. Maybe they just don't like the science, you know. That's weird. They don't trust the science. Hamas is indistinguishable from ISIS, and both were formed by parts of the American government. So yeah, it was entirely a move on the part of the Americans and Israelis to extricate the Palestinians. Yep, that makes sense to me. Woolly Ram says, future prognosis. If this was to try and secure living space due to the move east being blocked, what do you think the powers that be will do now to secure a safe haven? I think they're kind of fucked. The safe haven is for them still America, which is collapsing around their ears because of the ideology they're pushing. I think Israel is severely compromised and will be for decades. Even if they somehow manage to scale this shit down or stop it from becoming you know, the entire Arab world trying to stomp Israel out. Even if they manage to do that, they will have to watch their back for centuries. It was always like that to begin with, but now you've killed thousands of kids. I don't know about you, man, but, you know, I don't give a shit what's going on, who's done what. If somebody bombs the crap out of me and kills my kids and I somehow survive, well, you got an enemy for life. Or whether it's my brother, you know. And you've just made thousands of those guys that have got nothing to lose. So that's not going to go well. If it hasn't been scrubbed from the internet, look up the history of the Muslim Brotherhood. Yeah, that was financed by America as well. So, you know, that's what the CIA does. They create these enemies so that they can then go on and take over countries. That's what they do. That's what they've done. That's what the American empire has been doing and since time immemorial, and it's completely based and activated and built on Freemasonic ideas and Freemasonic rules of engagement. That's what the Freemasons do. That's what they've always done. That's how they infiltrated the Catholic Church. And like even smart Americans like Vox, like who are students of history and so on. And I don't want to accuse him of something I don't distinctly remember him doing, but I think even intelligent Americans that are well educated, when you tell them, look, your country was founded by Freemasons, created under Freemason rules, and is the first and very powerful Freemasonic country. They go like, no, we're a Christian nation. No, you're not Christians, but in order to understand that, you have to accept for a fact that Protestants are not Christians. And of course, most Protestants don't accept that because they've been brainwashed, indoctrinated from birth that, I'm a Christian just as good as any other Christian. No, you're not. Christianity is Catholicism. If you're not Catholic, you're not a Christian. If you're not a Sedevacantist, you're not a Catholic. So, a few 100,000 of us, maybe 1 million in the world, that's it. The rest are pretend Catholics, fooled into believing they are Christians when they're not. And America never was a Christian country. It was a painted over facade, like a lot of American things. Plastic. They were what the English would call plastic Christians. It was painted over with we read the Bible. And Protestants definitely got indoctrinated with the Bible, not dissimilarly to Muslims. Muslims in many countries get 2 hours a day where they have to recite the Quran by heart, and they get slapped if they don't know it. They get beaten if they don't know it. And they get to learn that Quran, man. They get to pronounce that Quran. They get to speak out that Quran. Just like the Protestants, they can quote the Bible verbatim, from all sorts of passages that I can't do, but doesn't matter because they don't fucking get it. They're not Christians. America is a Freemasonic country created by Freemasons for Freemasons and for the purpose of taking over the world. And they had a pretty good run of it. But now it's collapsing around the ears. That's how it happens. It is what it is. So to secure a safe haven, I'm sure New Zealand is still pretty attractive because the whole of Australia and New Zealand is completely converged. Those people are, they're now, I believe, mostly gunless, thanks to the false flag that they did with that poor guy that had an 85 IQ and they tried to burn alive but somehow survived and is still in jail. Joe Vallis wrote about this, the false flag in Port Alfred or Port Arthur, I forget the name of the place where they did it, where they killed 29 guys, 29 people. And the level of deception and falsity in that, anybody that knows anything about guns and that has looked into it at all is clearly aware of what happened. And I think Joe Valls himself was killed off because he was talking about too many things that were too real. But anyway, Australia and New Zealand are completely converged. So I think the elite probably have quite a lot of bunkers there. And they would quite happily just retire to New Zealand and sort of say, to the New Zealand population, which is very small, well, you just, guard our borders and, look after our food and we'll keep you around. We'll make sure you have a decent standard of living. And most Kiwis and most Australians would absolutely go for that. They are a people that, in my experience, has a pretty low level of morals. Of course, I'm sure there's plenty of exceptions. I know some of those exceptions, of course. I'm generalizing broadly, but I would think, given that China's said a firm no to them, I think Australia/New Zealand is probably where they're thinking of going. Possibly some parts of Argentina, but there's still a lot of Germans out there that remember them. So for now, I think, America and Canada seems to still be the safest places for them. So they're probably going to hole out in there, although it's not ideal for them. But they're thinking, well, shit, keep in mind what I was talking about, how to survive World War III, become self-sufficient, have your own little food. these guys all have levels of money that, you know, can run small countries, so they can do that on a huge scale. But what they don't have is loyalty. What they don't have is, other than a satanic ideology, which they share with the other Satanists, but, you know, they're not known to be the most community-oriented type of people, so they will backstab each other into, like, the ground. Snow says, create a problem in order to sell a solution, and in this case proliferate infinite war for infinite money at the expense of infinite human suffering. Netanyahu needs to go bye-bye. Well, not just him. There's plenty of people that need to go bye-bye. Willie Ram says, the only thing that will bring peace to the Middle East is conversion to true Catholicism. Gonna need some Arab-speaking priests. Well, that, or a whole bunch of nukes that reduce the whole place to glass, glowing, green, smooth glass. That or true Catholicism, yeah, it's one of those two. Murg Magalarmaxis says, the number of Catholics constantly maintaining the mainstream media line in America is disappointing to me. They're not Catholics, they're Novus Ordo Protestants / Satanists. Kind of ashamed to see what Tom Simon and John C. Wright have said. John C. Wright, I had long emails with. He is obviously not as smart as he thinks he is, and he's just wrong. Flat dead out wrong. I haven't read his stuff in a long time. I'm going to go and look up because I think he's a good man. I think John C. Wright is a decent human being. I think his family is decent human beings. I think his wife's a decent human being. I think his children are good people. I know for a fact he's a good guy. But he's just dead wrong. Just dead, flat out, boomer level wrong. So I don't have to mention that for US veterans, they're active participants in the intelligence agency scheme. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know the level of involvement of US veterans in the agency thing, but certainly the US military is used as the strong arm of the deep state of the United States. I mean, you know, in Afghanistan, the stuff they did there, in Iraq, the stuff they did in Abu Ghraib, these are not honorable soldiers. These are not honorable men that are deceived. These are scumbags that are like, hey, we can do what we want. We got guns. It's war. War is hell. Shoot kids, rape girls, whatever, you know. So yeah, I think anyone that would sign up to be in the military in the United States now is either a complete idiot or a scumbag, quite frankly. I've always thought anybody that signed up for any military was a complete idiot. I avoided military service, which was compulsory in my country, but I'd lived outside of it since I was a little boy, so I got away with avoiding it, and I made sure I did. I wanted nothing to do with it. The idea of being commanded to go and fight some random guy that I've got no problem with whatsoever because a politician tells me to, fuck that, you know. That makes me want to fucking take out the politician rather than the whoever I'm supposed to go and take out. You know, what the hell? I don't have beef with Palestinians or Jews or anybody. Just leave me the fuck alone. And I sure as shit ain't gonna go and put my life at risk for a politician. I mean, no, dude. Tell you what, we'll go to war when you dress in a bright red uniform and you lead from the front. You know? Then show me you really believe those convictions. And if I happen to share them, okay, I'll come along. If I don't, well, you're still on your own. Your bright red uniform right out there at the front. Fuck it. So, anyway, we've been going over 2 hours. I must have got excited somewhere in there. But, yeah, fire me any... I hope, you know, it was a bit long-winded, but I hope that the general gist of it was pretty clear about how to find a good wife and how to survive World War III. It's really quite simple stuff, and if not, you know, read the blog, because on the blog I go into more depth than I do usually on video. And I will probably do the, you know, if you can only have 5 guns. I mean, minimum, really. You want 5 guns. You want a handgun, you want a shotgun, you want an assault rifle, you want a long-range rifle, and, you know, a spare. Something cheap and small, like a 2.2 maybe, to like maybe a rifle or a pistol to hunt with or shoot birds or something. But what I really wanted to do, which you know, you guys don't get it. I don't get it. I really wanted to do, like, if you only had 100 kilo limit and you had to appear in the Xenozoic world, you know, where there's dinosaurs and Cadillacs, which was the role-playing game. Cadillacs and dinosaurs, or dinosaurs and Cadillacs, I forget. But that's the one I really wanted to do. You know, you guys are all about the war and finding a good wife. I mean, oh, come on, boring, man. You know, the war's coming. Don't worry about it. You know, it's there. It's going to happen one way or another. So just prepare. And how to actually go fully off grid. It's hard. You know, I still don't have like a proper water filter. I don't have a proper like solar panel stuff. I don't have a greenhouse. You know, and it's all shit that needs quite a bit of money to do quickly or efficiently. So I'll be a while. But I wish you all the best. Thank you all for being here. Those of you that 12, just like the apostles, still 12 of you. And I hope it was of some use. I hope you enjoyed it. And I wish you all good luck, a good life. I hope you know, come through World War III, whenever, however, and wherever that happens for you. And that you make a lot of children, and that you have a good, happy, long life. God bless you all. Thank you very much, and good night.